The King's Head was the kind of pub that time forgot. Its dark wood panelling, worn velvet stools, and the faint, sweet smell of decades of spilled beer made it a sanctuary from the frantic pace of modern London. Arthur Pendleton was the pub's most reliable customer. For 40 years, he had sat in the same corner seat, a worn leather armchair facing the door, its back to the crackling fireplace. His routine was as predictable as the chime of the pub clock. He would arrive at 7:30 p.m, hang his flat cap on the same peg, and nurse a single pint of Fuller's until the last call bell at 10 p.m. He was a man of few words, his face a roadmap of wrinkles, his hands gnarled with age. Jamie, the new barman, found him a puzzle. Arthur was a man of profound silence, his pale blue eyes fixed on some distant point only he could see. He never read a paper, never chatted, never watched the football on the telly. He simply was. "Does he ever have a second pint?" Jamie whispered to the landlord. "Never. Not in all my 20 years here," the landlord replied. "He's part of the furniture, that one." As the night wore on and the pub emptied, Jamie's curiosity got the better of him. While wiping down the bar, he ventured, "Quiet one tonight, eh?" Arthur looked up, his pale blue eyes focusing as if emerging from deep water. "It is," he said, his voice a soft rasp from disuse, "but not for long. Tonight's the night." Jamie leaned in. "Oh? Special occasion?" A melancholic smile touched Arthur's lips. He gestured to the empty chair opposite him. "Sit, if you've a moment for an old man's yarn." Intrigued, Jamie settled himself in the other armchair. "Do you believe in promises, lad?" Arthur asked, his voice a dry rustle. "The kind that anchor you to a place?" Jamie stared into the fire. "I suppose. If they're important enough. They can become your whole life," Arthur said, his eyes losing focus. It was 1965. The city was swinging. Miniskirts, the Beatles, a feeling that the whole world was new. He gave a small smile. "I wasn't part of any of that. I was just a boy from Clerkenwell, desperately in love with a girl named Ilara." He spoke her name with a reverence that made the air in the pub seem to still. "She was an art student, full of ideas and fire. I was due to enlist. My father was an army man, and a hard man too. He told me I would follow in his footsteps. What I wanted never came into it. I had a plan for us to run away to Cornwall, to a little cottage she'd drawn in her sketchbook." He took a shaky sip of his bitter. "Ilara was always drawing. One afternoon in Regent's Park, she sketched me when I dozed off under a tree. She had a fierce talent, captured my likeness perfectly, but had drawn a crown of oak leaves in my hair, and a tiny wee dragon curled at my feet. I laughed and said, 'That's not me. I'm not a king or a knight.' 'You are to me,' she said, 'and the dragon is to guard you while you sleep.' I kept that drawing in my army kit until it disintegrated. I got my call-up papers, you see," Arthur continued, his voice tightening. "My father had seen to that. National service had ended, but he made sure I was drafted under the new system. I was to report to the Princess Mary's Royal Air Force Nursing Corps camp, but first to the Army Recruiting Office in Hounslow for processing. I was terrified. Not of the army, but of losing Ilara. Like a coward, I didn't run away to Cornwall with her. I bowed to the wheel of the life my father chose for me. This very pub got its first jukebox that year, Arthur said, a genuine smile breaking through. Ilara, she was so bold. She put a sixpence in and chose her 3 songs. Then she marched right over, pulled me from this very chair, and made me dance with her right there, between the tables. He chuckled softly. I was scarlet, I tell you, but she didn't care. As we swayed to You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin', she looked up at me and said, No matter what happens, Arthur, promise me we'll never be like this song. Promise you'll always find your way back to me. We made that promise here, right beside this table, Arthur whispered, tapping the wood. A pact. No matter what happened, no matter where we were in the world, we would meet back here. We'd be older, wiser, and we'd finally be together. Jamie was now completely captivated. The dusty old man in the corner was suddenly a tragic, romantic figure from a lost era. Arthur joined the Royal Anglian Regiment and was eventually posted to Cyprus in 1966, during a period of heightened tension following the intercommunal violence. When he returned to London, Ilara was gone. Her family had moved, and no one knew where. He had come to the King's Head every single night since he was discharged, hoping against hope that she would remember the promise he had failed to keep. I've been waiting 40 years, Arthur whispered, his frail body seeming to shrink into the chair. Hoping she'd walk through that door and forgive me. He looked at the clock. It was 5 minutes to 10. Tonight is the anniversary of the day we made the promise. And I feel different. The pub was empty now, save for the 2 of them. Jamie felt a strange chill settle over the room. As the clock on the wall began to toll the hour, the old oak door of the pub creaked open. A woman stood there. She was beautiful, with a timeless grace, her hair styled in a soft bouffant, wearing an elegant knee-length coat that looked straight out of a film. She smelled of cold night air and a faint, floral perfume. She smiled, a warm, radiant thing that seemed to light up the dim pub, and her eyes fixed directly on Arthur. And then, the most miraculous thing happened. Arthur stood up, but he wasn't the frail, stooped old man of a moment before. He stood straight, his shoulders squared. The lines of age and regret on his face seemed to soften, and a youthful light returned to his eyes. He was looking at her not as an old man, remembering the past, but as a young man seeing his future. Ilara, he said, his voice clear and strong. Arthur, she replied. I've been waiting. He walked towards her, his step sure and light, no trace of the shuffle Jamie had seen for months. They met in the middle of the worn carpet, and as they embraced, Jamie felt a profound, almost sacred peace fill the room. They didn't speak again. Hand in hand, they turned and walked out into the night, the door swinging shut behind them. The next morning, Jamie was polishing glasses when the landlord came down, his face grim. Sad news, Jamie, he said, sighing. Old Arthur. The cleaner found him this morning, passed away peacefully in his chair last night. Jamie froze, the glass in his hand forgotten. He looked at the empty corner table, then back at the landlord. A shiver traced its way down his spine, but it wasn't born of fear. It was a chill of wonder. He had served Arthur his final pint, and he had met the only person who could ever convince him to leave.